Hi there everyone, I'm shooting this video because I'm trying to showcase the latest developments in my maps for surface tension, the uncut chapters that I've been creating, and that big development is that I'm publicly releasing it. So the big revelation is also partly that I've actually linked it into the main Black Mesa campaign, so it all flows seamlessly. And what you're going to see is actually quite different to the previous versions I've videoed, partly because I've had a small public release on the beta versions on the forums. And so bear in mind this is a work in progress. You can download the maps in the links below. And I recommend that you watch this video either before or after your playthrough, so you gain some insight into the development process and why I've done certain things the way they are, and so you know what sort of feedback to address and what sort of stuff I need and don't need to hear. So I'm just going to start by playing through this area. So at the moment I'm currently playing through a section which was developed by the Black Mesa devs and is actually in the main Black Mesa campaign. And it's going to flow seamlessly into my uncut chapters for surface tension, as you'll see in just a moment as I head that way. So here we see it's loading into my maps, so we've moved from official work into my work. My work mirrors the Half-Life 1 arrangements for the maps that follow this. So here we have the turrets with the vortigons. I changed it a little bit from Black Mesa by adding extra waves. As you can see, Black Mesa's 50 cal is hideously inaccurate. I seem to be receiving a bit of an ass kicking here. So throughout this course of the video I'm going to be referring to several versions of my map, so I figured I'll clear that up now before I carry on. There's going to be the previous test version of the map, which was the last version which beta testers saw, which if you haven't played you won't know about, so you'll just have to take my word for it. And there's going to be the previous filmed version of the map, which were the videos I put up on the YouTube previously. So my first big change was this door is now openable. In Black Mesa's original version it was cut off. And you'll see why in just a moment. Okay, it seems that doesn't work. So in the Black Mesa's original version of this map, there was a vent here which you could climb into, and you'd walk across that and you'd drop down in front of the Gargantua, meaning that surface tension was severely cut from its original version. That is not so in my maps, because I have uncut it. So the previous testing version of the map had a weird area portal bug here where you could see the sky through here. You can see that's not the case anymore. So I'm going to go through and let the next section speak for itself briefly. So during these big fights between the aliens and the HECU, normally it's best just to leave them to be until they decide to engage you, at which point you should intervene. As you can see, this area is much darker than its Half-Life 1 version, and it's probably the biggest break thematically from the rest of surface tension throughout my entire uncut chapters, but I feel it's for the best. So part of my rationale for designing the chapters the way I did, there's lots of fights between the HECU, which are the Marines, and the aliens, is because, well, in the chapter following it, which is Forget About Freeman, the Marines decide to pull out. And over the course of these chapters, you see the Marines starting to lose and or invest heavy resources into taking down the aliens, which they simply can't afford to do. So by having them fight one another a lot in the chapters, I'm hoping to strengthen the impact of the later chapters and make the story more impactful for the player. So, from the previous testing versions of the map, I've added a button which allows players to backtrack if they want to. I don't really know why you'd want to, but there were complaints about it. The reason this door auto-closes is for optimization purposes. The minute the door hits the bottom of the ground, the entire area behind there stops rendering, saving frames. Another change from the previous test version is this jump pad. As soon as I step onto it, I'm going to stop moving, and you'll see what happens. So it actually launches me to the correct place, finally. So I've made it a little less empty, although I don't want to add too much clutter because it will slow the frame rate down. Here's a glimpse into the outdoor area, which I've changed a lot. The road along, which you will see a bit later when I get out there eventually. So here's the emergency stairwell where you can find a few goodies. There are multiple ways to get to the top level, which is where you need to go, and the player can choose whichever one they like. So you can open this door from the inside if you want to. So I could go up the stairwell to the top. I have the other alternative of taking this jump pad if I wanted to, which also works better now, although this is probably the least consistent jump pad. Or you can take these spiral ramps, which are just there for decoration, and they look pretty good. So here's the very empty top level. And in here you can find some supplies. So as I come out onto the street, one complaint that I was receiving about my maps in general from the previous test version, so the beta version I posted, was that, well, basically what was happening was the encounters between the aliens and the Marines, I'd stacked them too far in favour of the aliens, meaning that they wiped out the Marines completely, leaving you to fight very large groups of aliens, which was extremely difficult. So I really focused on trying to balance it a bit better so that, although the aliens still normally end up winning most of their encounters with the Marines, they do so by a far smaller margin. So you could see the aliens were probably going to win that one. Oh dear. Well, he slipped under the net. But yes, generally a smart player or an astute player will leave the enemies to battle it out with one another until there's one or two remaining still fighting each other, and then strike the finishing blow on both of them while they're distracted. It's a neat little gameplay element, I think, that Black Mesa was lacking a little bit. And, you know, three-way fights are always fun. So you can see here my expanded 3D skybox from the previous version, in keeping with the rest of the game. And from previous testing versions, I've added a little humming noise to this AC unit, if you listen. And a drop down, so you can come down without taking any falling damage. So the aliens normally win this fight, although the Marines sometimes get the upper hand. It's 50-50 really. So from the all previous versions, I've significantly changed up the layout of this area. You can see the truck on the right is completely new. I've moved these boxes from here to here. I've added a light here. And I've also changed the buttons from blue to red, so you know you can't go that way. And hopefully this gives the player a better sense of direction. Previous testers were saying they thought they could go through these doors and were going up and pressing buttons and getting confused and going back here, trying to open this door, trying to find a way to go through here. So hopefully the light, you know, the vent and the red lights on the doors should let you know now that you can't go this way. And having the boxes over here just lets you see the ladder clearer. And on the subject of the ladder, I have significantly improved its handling. So if you get to the top of it and crouch, you end up inside. If you go up to the top of it and jump, you sort of fall down, but you can still end up inside sometimes. And of course, going up to the top and pressing E works, as it always should. So hopefully that's a lot better from the previous version. But ladders in Half-Life single-player games are kind of useless anyway. I've added a few lights to the inside of this vent to make it a bit clearer as to where you're going. Before, this ladder was dark, so sometimes players weren't seeing it properly. I've received a fair amount of flack for this snark encounter that I'm about to come across, but I feel that's a little bit unjustified because this vent is actually the one that I was talking about earlier from Black Mesa's version of this map, where you actually are supposed to face snarks for the first time. So it's actually pretty much the same as the Black Mesa devs had designed it. And for those of you having trouble with this encounter, observe. The Hive Hand is the king of snark killing. So remember to use that one. I fixed a little lighting bug here with the... you can see this area is actually rendering properly. It used to be dark. And so here's your introduction to snarks. which in Black Mesa actually are really not anything like as good as they were in Half-Life 1. Primarily because the Marines are so bloody accurate. The Snarks don't get a chance to do anything. But they're fairly useful as distractions, so you could say their roles changed. So let's do this. So here you can see the garage area, which really hasn't changed a great deal from all its previous iterations, just various bug fixes and texture fixes. One change, as suggested by all my testers, is I've added health stations and many battery power-ups, so I actually dropped down onto 3 there, which you couldn't see because I fell, and 2 up here. In the original Half-Life version there were lots of batteries in this garage as well actually, so ties together. So you can see that this area of the vent doesn't fall away whereas it used to, and I've put a support there to try and explain that, and there. Another fix is this actually works properly now, this ramp here. It used to clip into the ground and not look very good. And yes. So about this next section, which when I open this door you'll see, I read complaints on FacePunch that people were saying that, oh, you know, why would there be such an elaborate trap set up there, you know, when their friends are still inside? Why would the Marines do that? Well, I suppose the simplest answer would be that the Marines that were in here were actually setting up the trap before I rudely interrupted them and ruined their day. And it's not so far-fetched, I don't think, to say that they'd set up the trap there and then leg it and come out this door. So I hope that addresses that little criticism. And, well, the other reason is because of limitations. It was a bit difficult to recreate the original scene, so I tried to do my own thing. So another problem you can see here is this. If you look at that model, you can see the texture bug. And unfortunately I don't think that's something I can address. So the problem is it's a cinematic physics model that was designed by the Black Mesa devs, which I've just used in my map. It's from We've Got Hostiles actually. And it's actually designed like that. I don't know why they've got that, but it's like that, and there's nothing I can really do about it. So another criticism from the previous test version was that these railings collided with things, and the crossbow bolts, which they no longer do. Although the crossbow bolt's collision is pretty terrible in Black Mesa anyway. I tried to inject a bit of fun into this fight from previous versions, so I've added a bit of cover as you land, so you can you don't have to just sit in the window and play a game of peekaboo. Good grief, that was terrible. Even for me, that was a poor performance. I'm going to struggle with the rest of this now, as a result of losing all that health. It might be worth reloading the previous save, but for the purposes of demonstration, I think I'm going to attempt to carry on. So from previous testing versions, players were complaining that it wasn't intuitive as to what they had to do here. So adding the alien grunts behind the doors making noises, and the craters should help a bit. Let's see if I can stand this area. It seems unlikely, but we'll have a try. This is actually a very difficult fight. Testers were giving me feedback saying this fight was far too difficult before, so I threw in a couple of extra health packs, some supplies, and this little fella here, who may actually be disabled because I knocked him over. Nope. So let's bust open that door. Come on. Right, okay. So, even though I'd done the last scene terribly because I set up my traps very well and elaborately, I actually benefited from it. So, yeah, that's that bit. There's actually a Harrier taking off here, which I completely forgot to film, who takes off and flies off into the distance there, which you can sometimes see. I didn't catch it that time because I was preoccupied. So this area has an M35 with some supplies in the back, which weren't there before. Because another bit of feedback I was getting from testers was that these maps were extraordinarily difficult because of the lack of supplies, so I've tried to alleviate that a bit. There's also a sentry turret here the players can use if they choose to, but I'm going to demonstrate the balance of my next scene, so I'm not going to use it. Another common bit of criticism was again stemming to the from the balance in the scripted fights, which I've attempted to change here as well. So the aliens used to win this by an overwhelming amount, and it's a little bit different now, a little bit less consistent. Here comes the damaged aircraft. I also opened a hole in the roof of this netting to let the players see the scene better. It never gets old watching the Marines get thrown off the top there, it really doesn't. So the LAV makes a much more impressive entrance now, and the Marines come charging in alongside it, which I think looks really good. So I'll just sit by and observe. So now that most of the enemies are dead, it looks like a pretty good time for me to intervene. And voila, that was that scripted battle. And I think that played out almost perfectly for me. And it was how I'd intended it. The aliens won, but not by an overwhelming degree. There were about 3 left here, and the tank finished off some of them. And again, as per my own advice, I attempted to intervene just before the fight finished to maximise the benefits to myself. So again, I've dotted some supplies around this helipad to encourage usage of various weapons. So from the previous videoed version, you can see I completely changed the helipad. I made it much grander in scale. Hopefully it looks much more impressive. And the hangar. I'm just so proud of this hangar. I really am. It's come leaps and strides from the previous version. It really looks convincing now, I think. Hope you agree with me. So there's actually a pretty serious bug with this Osprey being destroyed, which isn't necessarily my fault. When it's destroyed, it throws off pieces everywhere. And the way I'd scripted it to be destroyed is it's actually an NPC Osprey, which is actually an AI-controlled helicopter. And it's scripted to be destroyed as soon as it comes into contact with the beam. So the destruction you see from it is actually entirely scripted by the Black Mesa dev team, so it's nothing that I've done. And for some reason, when you walk into the pieces, you take damage. As you can see, damage. Which, if you're on low health, is extremely bad. I don't know why this problem is occurring. If anyone has any idea, I'd love to know. So the least I've done is implement a temporary fix based on testers' feedback. Because there were lots of problems with the pieces falling off the edge here and blocking your way to the next section. And if you're on low health, you often die trying to get there. So I've added invisible walls here and here, which only block the pieces from the Osprey. Meaning that they no longer fall down and block your path, even though they still do damage. So here's my 3D skybox view. I think it's very impressive. I've expanded it a lot, and I've also managed to get the fog blending to work from before. So as you can see, I've really massively expanded on the original Half-Life version and brought it closer to the way Black Mesa is. And I really think I've done a good job, and I'm very proud of this. So let's move on to the next level of my 3. So we hit a level transition here. Now this strange red light appears at the origin of the map for some reason I can't quite understand. I'll see if I can do anything about it, although I really don't know why it happens. So what you're going to see here is fairly similar to the previous videoed version. I didn't really change much because this area is fairly simple. He does come out head first this time. Don't you roar at me, young man. Learn some discipline. Okay, so this scene is fairly different, especially in that you can actually hear the sounds of a battle going on outside already. And as you can see from the previous video version, I blocked off the exit area, but not for too long. As for the scripted fight, I've tried to make it more balanced again. It normally ends up with 2 or 3 people left alive from either side. So you can see the Marines have been wrecked, but now they're left to face the tank, which will give them some serious problems. And it looks like the tank has wiped them out and left me to face the rooftop Marines. And I actually completely missed the Manta there, but you've all seen it before, so I hope it's not such a big deal. So that's that scripted fight out the way. Whew, that was a tricky shot. I'm just going to let the music die down before I attempt to say anything. So I'll just have a look at the area for you. So, as you can see, the Marines actually won that fight, but only by three humans, which was still... It's not as balanced as I'd like it to be, but it's definitely more so than before. It's actually very tricky to balance things like that. There's a lot of variables involved, and obviously the more NPCs you add, the greater the chance of a random outcome. So changes from the previous version of this area. You can see I've made a lot more destruction in the area, blown it open a bit. Hopefully it looks a bit more war-torn. And it's obviously, again, significantly expanded from the original, which was probably about half this size. As you can see, the next area is locked up, and I've added some custom-made signs to try and explain to the astute player what they need to do. So, if secure debt lockdown in operation, contact security personnel. So, you ideally want to get a hold of one of these guys, but preferably not lying face down in a pool of his own blood. So the player should get the idea that they need to go on a hunt. Although if not all players will probably get that, but still got to follow the level anyway. So you can see this door's locked with a keypad, so the player might get an idea of which door they need to open as well. So I also changed the jump pad here to accurately guide you onto the pipe without you having to do anything, so I'll stop moving as soon as I step onto it. There we go, no input at all. Okay, so this next area has a scene where you face zombies and snarks at the same time. And I actually got quite a bit of complaint from some testers saying it was too difficult to fight, and that facing both at the same time was very frustrating. So I'm going to respond by playing it out the way I'd envision most players doing it, and you can tell me if you think that's reasonable or not. That didn't seem terribly difficult to me. I would have thought that most players would figure out that the snarks are attacking the zombies and just leave them to do their thing. But let me know what you think about that. So you can see I've tried to recreate how a snark infestation looks in Black Mesa. I do think I did a good job of that. I really am proud of this area. You can see here that in the destroyed bathroom there's a lot of Zen flora growing, and you can see the jump pad is supposed to be a part of that. And again, if you stand on the jump pad, it launches you onto the roof naturally. So let's observe this fight. So, as you can see, the Marines won that, although it's normally about 50-50. Sometimes the aliens win, sometimes the Marines win. On this film, the Marines won. So one thing you've noticed is when I zoom in, there's a bit of a weird bug with the aliens when I'm looking at them. They sort of... It seems like they're not affected by the fog. I don't really understand why this happens. It actually happens on Black Mesa's maps by default as well. It's not just on my maps. So you can't pin the blame solely on me. A fairly contentious thing about my map is this next guy here. This dick. So, I've had a lot of complaints that he's very frustrating to fight. Players find it extremely difficult to kill him. And I think that that's slightly missing the point of why I put that sniper there. You don't necessarily have to kill him. In fact, I hadn't really intended the players to kill him, otherwise I would have put some RPG rockets on the roof. The idea is he just adds a bit of tension and a sense of urgency to this scene, so that you feel pressured to get inside the building, and adding a bit of tension to surface tension. You can kill him with a well-placed shot, which I'll attempt to do, but probably fail. There we are, got him. So you can see, I don't think it's a particularly fair thing to ask me to remove him or anything. And I think if I added rockets to the rooftop scene here, it would give players the idea that they actually have to kill him, which isn't something I want to do. So we go down into the famous satchel pipe scene. So this area had actually had a fair bit of criticism from testers as well. This ladder, I've made it so that you can't collide with it anymore, so you don't get stuck on the way down. And this ladder is now static. Testers were dropping down and accidentally nudging this ladder and causing it to fall into the water, blocking them a lot. Hopefully that's not an issue anymore. And on the subject of this satchel pipe scene, I just want to thank Ronster for helping me perfect it. He helped me figure out how to get the Marine to throw the satchel into the pipe, and he also helped me figure out which particle effects to use. So a bit of community collaboration there. You can see it's not particularly difficult to avoid. It's for dramatic effect. It's kind of an oh shit moment, which I think surface tension was lacking in Black Mesa a little bit. So I reckon we should show this man how it's done. Mother of God indeed. 1-0. Okay, so here we have the furnace room. And we're about to observe the war between the zombies and the Marines. Which the zombies should win. Let's take a look. So yep, the zombies nearly always win that. I haven't actually seen the Marines win that. So as you can see, this has changed a significant amount from the previous videoed version. I've expanded the furnace to make it look much more fearsome and intimidating and just generally furnace-y. I've made it so instead of coming through a pipe which goes here, the player has to climb into the furnace, which I've explained through means of it being a maintenance hatch of sorts. And you can see I've given a not-so-subtle sign as to what the player has to do here. Okay. So in previous versions I had a little barrel puzzle here where the player had to block it with a barrel, and it didn't really make any sense and it was very counterintuitive, so I simply switched it out for turning the valves off, all of the gas valves off. I've had some complaints from players that you know, this puzzle isn't particularly taxing and they thought it should be more complicated and have a little bit more to it. But the purpose of this, I hadn't really designed it to be a puzzle, it was just a little bit of a break in the action. Just a little bit of adding to the flow of the map a bit. So, I'm not sure it really needs to be a puzzle. And as for this, well, this valve was extremely bugged in the previous testing version. It wouldn't turn unless you stood precisely here and looked at the dead center. So I've addressed that, I've redone it, and it should work pretty much perfectly now. So you can see, wherever I stand, wherever I look, it turns the right way, which is good, because it's way less frustrating. So, the furnace goes silent. So as you can see, I put a bit of thought into this area. It makes a lot more sense than the original one did, that's for sure. I think shrinking it down has actually helped. It makes it feel a bit more claustrophobic and oppressive. So you climb into the furnace and follow the pipe. You can go down that way, but it's a dead end. So one thing you can see here is that I added a little ambient feature where when you're indoors, you'll periodically get explosions and shaking, which shows that there's battles going on outside. This whole conflict is much bigger than you. It's escalating fast. So you can see I changed the way the end of this pipe looks. It looks like it's been destroyed from the inside by, say, a gas leak or something. And I know it looks a little bit rough and not too fantastic, but I actually copied the style the Black Mesa devs did for the destruction of a pipe in Blast Pit. So if you have problems with it thematically, take it up with them. So here we have my gasworks, which was a theme suggested to me by Chicken Protector and Ronster. The original Half-Life just had you going into a very, very generic, boring, destroyed building at this point. So I figured that the best way would be to have the furnace linked to a gasworks, which is doing something along the lines of, you know, powering and heating the Black Mesa facility. And it's impressive enough, I think. I think it looks pretty good. So I've redesigned this area from the previous videoed and tested versions a bit to make it extremely clear as to where the player has to go. So you see there's signs here telling you it's the security station, and hopefully the player will draw links. Oh, I'm supposed to be finding some security personnel, and the sign reiterates that, as does the red light. And I've added a walkway up here, which has been destroyed with a ladder, showing that the player could have got up here but hasn't because of the war. And hopefully this makes it very clear the player needs to be up there. In previous versions, as you know, I had it so the player had to walk along a pipe here, and it was very unclear as to where the player had to go. So hopefully I've cleared that one up. As you can see, there's a crashed Apache protruding through the roof, which has caused a fair amount of structural damage. I took inspiration here from the Killing Floor map KF Crash. Absolutely brilliant game, by the way. I wholeheartedly recommend it. I think it looks pretty good, and again, it just shows that the aliens are seriously giving the Marines a big run for their money here. So on to my jumping puzzle. I'd had complaints from testers that it was a bit too tricky, the jumps were a bit too precise, so I've made them a bit simpler by expanding the collision on the pipes. This crate should also help get players off to a better start. I'd just like to point out that if testers were having serious problems with this, a lot of it can be alleviated by crouch jumping. It is something you have to do far too much in Black Mesa because the jump heights are very low, but it helps here as well. I've also shrunk down the hurt barriers for the steams to make it a bit more lenient on the player. So this section is pretty much what you could consider a new section. This wasn't in the original game. It was you basically went through the pipe, climbed out, and you were there next to Barney rescuing him. I added a little bit of, well, a lot to try and break up the action a bit, because Surface Tension is heavily action-oriented. And you know, one thing the Half-Life series has always done brilliantly is its pacing, so I hope this helps it. So you advance to the security office, where you come across this. So Barney's holed up in there for some reason. I presume you could guess, or perhaps assume that he's waiting for you to come through. And I just messed that up, but luckily they were far away, so it was okay. So let's go and say hi to Barney.
Finally, someone who ain't trying to kill me. You ain't trying to kill me too, right? Right, okay. Now look here. I reckon they're bringing in the heavy artillery, which means we gotta get to the landing bucket for that parking garage. And we gotta run. Like hell.
Love that. So,
we ran into each other, you know?
I've actually fixed this sequence a little bit so that the animating works better, and it uses cut dialogue from Black Mesa, because I'm assuming the devs were originally intending to create this scene but never got around to it. So you can see he doesn't glitch on this scene anymore. He opens the doors for you, and he actually is so gentlemanly he'll walk over there and even open the door for you himself. And he also follows you by default now, you don't have to go and ask him. So let me just stock up a bit before I leave.
All this.
Okay, my game crashed, so I've reloaded this. So we come out to the next alien battle. This time with Barney by our side. Thankfully, someone can appreciate my brilliance. So this door auto-closes, and some testers were complaining that it's shut, trapping Barney inside. But again, I had to close it for rendering purposes. The inside of the gasworks is extremely difficult to render because of all the steam. But I added a button that allows players to reopen it if they need to. So I also added a final fight to this map that wasn't in the previous versions, both testing and videoed, which allows you to use the 50 cal. Having this extra wave appear in the earlier battle with the tanks kind of strained believability a bit, and it really overloaded the area with corpses and death. So hopefully that's fixed it up a bit. So we come to the end of the map, and we proceed to the Gargantua, past his fallen comrade. So again, I changed this a fair bit. Originally, he used to open the door for you. You'd come inside, and the Gargantua would be right there, and Barney wouldn't follow you. So getting Barney to be present during the Gargantua chase really presents a lot of problems. So I've added a vent that the player has to climb through so that they get separated from him. It's a bit of a shame, but that's the way it is, I'm afraid. So this is my final map, C2A5I, which contains the Gargantua chase, which I've heavily modified from its original Black Mesa version. Right, so if we go up here... Sorry, Barney, but this is where we must part.
Alright, I'll stay here.
Just grab some goodies and move out. So I had a few complaints from testers about this snark encounter which I placed here. So I moved it back a little bit to try and make it a bit easier. But I like the snarks, and I feel they weren't really used very much in Black Mesa by default, so I figured including a few wouldn't hurt so much. Plus it gives a bit of time for this music to kick in proper when the players are waiting to fight them. So before I head down to the Gargantua chase, I'm just going to stress to everyone watching that I've done absolutely everything within my power to fix this Gargantua and the way he behaves. In the original Black Mesa version, it was broken in so many ways, partly because of the way his AI was coded and partly because of the way the map was designed. So I think I've done absolutely everything I can to alleviate the map design aspect of the problem, and the rest of it lies with his coding and the way he's designed to behave. And no disrespect to the Black Mesa devs at all, but it could have been done a lot better. And I think I've done all I can. I've also given him an impressive new entry. So one bug that was in Black Mesa was that the cars in this next section were weightless. If you walked into them and hit them, they'd go flying. Or if you walked into them, you could push them. This was presumably to allow the Gargantua to push them aside effortlessly. I've managed to fix this bug, and the cars aren't weightless. And he still pushes them aside effortlessly, as you can see. So I actually don't intend to play this next scene properly. I'm going to demonstrate the new versatility of the Gargantua's new AI by messing around a little bit. So you can see he always chases you. I've already completely eliminated his desire to constantly head towards that tower. And if the player jumps in the water, which lots of testers were reporting that was what they did initially, you'll see he gets rather upset and starts patrolling the area. So you see he starts pacing up and down near you, showing that he's no longer an idiot who will run straight back to the tower and start shaking it, completely breaking all believability. So if you go over to the middle section, oh, this is a new route I added, by the way. He starts patrolling around here. And the reason I've designed it like that is because now, if I climb up here, he'll attack me. I really don't want to go that way. So I've created a bit of a standoff. If I go back over here, he'll come back that way. So it creates a bit of tension. You know, the Gargantua was actually quite scary now. He's waiting. You can tell that he's just waiting to kill you. That's all he wants to do. He doesn't want to make sweet, sweet love with that tower. So I added a little escape route, which the player will hopefully be able to figure out on their own. You could also take your chances with the stairs or with the other ladder, but this is probably your best bet. And he notices you and comes chasing after you, so I'm going to promptly escape onto the tower. And you see he goes and starts shaking it, just as he should. He's none too happy about me being up here. So in Black Mesa's version, once he got onto the tower, you pretty much couldn't get him off. He'd just shake it indefinitely, which was ridiculous. So now, if I jump off, he starts chasing after me again, trying to kill me. And if I jump back in the water, he'll go back on patrol again. So you can see his animations are a bit glitchy because I used a slightly hackish method to try and get him to patrol. But it's still better than the alternative, I think. And there isn't really much I can do about it at this point. So if I take my chances with climbing up here. He can also... I also deleted a lot of the pipes that they'd put around the courtyard, which blocked his pathing, meaning he couldn't chase you quite as accurately. You can see he's actually having problems there now. But if I climb up the ladder quickly... Whoa! He'll again start shaking it. So you can see it's a little bit buggy and a little bit slow to react, but it's far, far better than what we had before. And like I said, I think I've done all I can. There really isn't much more I can do. So the final way in which I'm not going to play this scene properly is I'm not going to kill him with this airstrike like you're supposed to. I'm going to destroy the tower to gain access to Forget About Freeman. So I'm going to attempt to run over this way and gain access to Forget About Freeman without his permission. And you'll see that he's none too happy about this when I decide to do it. He pries open the doors and he comes at me. So you see he doesn't, his pathing doesn't actually allow him to go beyond this point. Well, it does, but it's very rare that you'll be able to open these doors all the way for him to get through. If I did, in fact, I'll demonstrate it right now. He would actually be able to follow me to Forget About Freeman. But I'm planning on adding a sequence later where he can actually pry those doors open himself to encourage the player to kill him. But for now, I'm just going to leave it like this. It's an acceptable compromise. So you see he chases me all the way. So it's extremely beneficial to kill him when you're supposed to. So now if I open the door, you'll see the next part of the magic. Once it finishes loading, I'm in Forget About Freeman. So as you can see, we've gone from dev develop maps to my maps, back to dev develop maps seamlessly. It's all flowed perfectly, and it's as if those chapters from Half-Life 1 were never gone. See? Forget About Freeman. So unfortunately I had to decompile and recompile the first map of Forget About Freeman in order to make it link to my maps instead of the previous ones. But I didn't make any changes at all aside from that. So that's it for my video. I've just showcased all the aspects of my maps and tried to explain at least some of the design decisions. Please download it. The download link will be in the video. Please download it, enjoy it, test it. If you find any bugs or questionable design decisions or things you think should be changed, please let me know. You can contact me on the forums or on this video, or I'll do my best to reply. I'm still constantly working on it, so there'll be things I keep changing as time progresses. Keep checking back for new downloads. And I think that's pretty much it. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching, and thank you for downloading.